On Monday, when the Santa Fe, New Mexico Sheriff's Office released to the public dozens of videos, photos, documents, and other evidence it has gathered over the last 6 months in its investigation of the Alec Baldwin Rust movie set, I asked, why now? Why was the sheriff releasing all that investigative work before a decision has been made on whether charges would be filed in the case? It's almost unheard of that during an active criminal investigation, you release all this stuff. The family of the cinematographer Halyna Hutchins is now asking the same thing. Among the newly revealed evidence is Alec Baldwin on camera, practicing his cross draw move in the moments before the gun went off, firing a live round that struck and killed Hutchins and injured director Joel Souza. And body cam footage of Baldwin being interviewed by officers as they first arrived on the scene. There were also photos of the blood-soaked floor of the set, along with pieces of gauze and paramedic equipment left over in the fight to save Halyna. Authorities even made public the police interview of Baldwin back at the sheriff's office, where he learned Hutchins had died.
I do have some very unfortunate news to tell you.
What?
She didn't make it. Yeah. So Joel's still at the hospital, but the other person involved didn't make it.
I want to go call my wife.
Of course, we could even give you privacy.
No, we're going to go.
Okay.
We're going to go.
No,
But out of all of the horrible and emotional images, the Hutchins family are extremely upset, understandably, at the release of body cam footage showing Hutchins as she lay dying. So we're going to show you briefly, just so you understand, and then we will not repeat it again in this segment. You can see first responders desperately trying to save her life as she lies on the ground, seemingly motionless, except for a slight turn of her head. They give her oxygen and tear open gauze to try to tend to her gunshot wound. These are seemingly her last moments. It is now in the public domain. It was released by the Sheriff's Department. The Hutchins lawyer, Brian Panish, says the sheriff, Adam Mendoza, and his office violated the family's constitutional rights by releasing that video without clearing it with her loved ones first. The family says they'd be given access to the material to review early that Monday, hours before it was released, later that afternoon. In a letter to Mendoza, the lawyer writing in part, the first time Mr. Hutchins saw the disturbing and unsettling video footage of his dying wife lying on the church floor was on Radar Online, an internet website. Potential consequences are disturbing given how information is misused on social media. We fear, for example, that this shocking footage of Andros's mother dying may be material used by bullies to emotionally abuse him in the future. Your office trampled on the constitutional rights of the Hutchins family. The damage your office has done is irreparable. Taking down the video will end your complicity in causing further harm. The Sheriff's Department says it was following the law by fulfilling Freedom of Information requests filed in the wake of the shooting. But those laws give officials involved in active, ongoing investigations a lot of discretion about what they release and when. And certainly authorities don't typically release so much information all at once and seemingly unedited and minimally redacted. So that answer doesn't seem to explain it. So we want to talk to someone who knows this department, knows the law in the area. Jennifer Burrell, president-elect of the New Mexico Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. Jennifer, welcome back to the show. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. All right, so what do you make of the release of all of this material? Have you ever seen anything like it?
No, I haven't seen anything like it, but there are a few things going on that you may not be aware of. In January, the deputies union voted no confidence in Adam Mendoza as sheriff. And one of the issues that they put forward was his lack of transparency. So he's come out publicly and said that this release had to do with transparency. The problem is that we don't know what hand the district attorneys had in approving this kind of release. And as you know, this can really impact the fairness of a jury trial. If people have access to all of this evidence that may or may not be allowed in by the judge at trial, and make a decision on guilt or innocence before they ever show up or step foot in the courtroom.
See, I think that the more likely explanation is that they did this environmental review, right? And the film got fined, the maximum fine under New Mexico law, for basically saying that they weren't taking the necessary protocols, et cetera. And Alec Baldwin ended up doing kind of a victory lap. His lawyer put out a statement, which he then shared as well, sort of saying, see, this exonerates Alec Baldwin. And I'm sure that did not make the sheriff's department happy. And I wonder whether, as a result of that, they said, we want to make it very clear to Alec Baldwin that this investigation is not over.
And that very well could be, but you know that ego has no place in a criminal investigation. It's supposed to be about the facts. And if that is the case, then this is all about his ego and whether, he's been put aside. But there's been a lot of criticism of the sheriff of how long this investigation has taken. I think it's also an attempt by him to show that his office has completed their investigation and they're only waiting on the scientific evidence.
Talk to us about New Mexico law here. The family is basically saying that it was required that they be allowed to see it first. What does the law actually say?
So New Mexico is very unique. It is one of the only states that has a victim's rights section in its constitution. So Article 2, Section 24 is the Crime Victims' Rights Act. There's a whole host of things that focus on the victim's right to be present in the courtroom during hearings, the victim's right to present a statement, to be consulted. Now, they don't have any, as you mentioned earlier, like right to say they don't want that released and to have that be the final word. Obviously, law enforcement and the district attorney's office always have to make the decisions they think are in the best interest of justice. So I think it's really a misstatement by the lawyer to say that they have the final word, because they do not. And really everything except for the dignity portion, which is the very first item listed in the Constitution, are things that happen after a charging decision. Obviously, the dignity and respect could be seen as just happening after the charging decision, because they're talking about the criminal justice process. And at this point, nobody's been charged. So if there's not somebody who's seen as a defendant, then how do we have somebody who's seen as a victim because they're not even in the system yet?
Well, yes, except I would think that they can still be considered a victim even before there's a formal case. I mean, for example, let's assume there's a case where they haven't found the person, right? Where they know that someone was murdered and they haven't found the person yet. I would think that that person would still be considered a victim under the law.
Well, it depends because there's not a criminal case pending. I mean, I think the general public could see him as a victim, but in terms of the law, most of the legal cases surrounding this section of the Constitution have to do with the victim's right to present a statement after trial before sentencing.
Right.
Very little litigation on anything that would determine whether these rights apply before there's a charging decision.
Yeah. All right, Jennifer, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming back on the show.
Good seeing you again.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.